Live YouTube edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider Bill Ryder on location undisclosed. I'm not sure where he is. And then in her home studio, Ashley Nicole Moss. I know that you had, Ash, a whole bunch of HQ duties today. Who wants to start here? Team USA, very exciting blowout win over Brazil, 122-87. Devin Booker led with 18. A different leading scorer in every game. Bill, before we started rolling, you said you felt lobotomized. That's about right.
Yes.
This is the worst game of the day.
Slow motion lobotomy. I used to have trouble sleeping. I used to, this is easy solution. When we get done, because I'm a little further east than you all, so it's later here in my secret location. I'm just going to watch the game a couple more times and sleep like a baby for 12 or 14 hours. That was brutal. But go America.
Brazil's not good.
They're not good at all.
Turns out.
The uniforms are cool. That's all I can say nicely about them.
I don't know if it's that. See, I think it's hard to use Team USA as the gauge of just how good a team is sometimes, right? Because we're so much better than a lot of other teams. I do think that Brazil has things that they do well. I think that in this tournament, if you look at the statistics, they're one of the top offensive rebounding teams. So they're on the boards constantly. I think that they play quick. I just don't think it's enough when you're talking about going against the level of competition that is Team USA. If you want to pick apart their game and try to find, again, things that they do well, just speaking in terms of basketball as a whole, I think that they exist, but I think that changes when you start talking about how good they are against other teams that are a lot better, if that makes sense. So they got this far for a reason. We can give them that. That doesn't happen by mistake.
You're so much nicer than me.
It doesn't. There are teams that didn't even get this far. So,
Yeah, of the teams that made it this far to the knockout stage, Brazil was clearly the worst team. And by the way, Team USA also has the best possible draw because all the good teams ended up on the other side of the bracket aside from Serbia and Australia. And they went to overtime today and Joker's still alive. And, he's
those were good games.
Yeah. And we'll get to Joker and whatnot. But the other side of the bracket is absolutely brutal. All right, well, let's talk about positive things for Team USA. KD passes Lisa Leslie as he was already the all-time leading scorer for the men. Now he's the all-time leading scorer, full stop for both the men and the women for Team USA. He also, in the previous game, passed Carmelo Anthony as Team USA's all-time leading rebounder. What does this do for KD's legacy? Because it's kind of a mixed bag. He likes to talk about himself in the GOAT conversation. We kind of laughed that off on an earlier episode of Beyond the Arc when we first started doing this show.
We didn't.
Okay.
Y'all did.
Ashley did? It was an Ash? No,
that was you guys, not Ashley. Right. Ashley did not do that.
All right, Ashley. So what does this do for his legacy?
For me, his legacy was never in jeopardy. I think that legacy and likability are two different things. And I think if you want to talk about KD's likability legacy, then it may not be as high as like a Steph Curry or some other guys. But I think when we talk about his career as a whole, yes, I understand that there's a stain, if you will, because of how he won his 2 championships and the team he did it with and how he got there and, what happened after that. I understand all of that. But, when you talk about his accolades, he's an Olympic champion multiple times, a gold medalist, rather, multiple times over. He's a 2-time world champion. He is a league MVP. He's a 2-time finals. I mean, the list goes on and on. The accolades are there. The legacy has already been cemented. This is just already going to add to an already prolific career. I don't think it gives him this drastic jump. I think his legacy was already very, very high when you talk about in comparison to his peers. This just is another notch on his very impressive belt. So it doesn't do much for me except solidify what I already knew, that Kevin Durant's one of the greatest to ever play the game.
I think it does matter for me. And I think his Olympic career should matter in ways that maybe I didn't understand or give significance to before this run. I know we talked about this a little bit, Ash, you and I and Chris Walker last week. And you're right. He's not passing Jordan or LeBron. And for me, he's not passing Steph. And I don't think it's top 10 anymore. I think there's obviously we're so far into the history of the game now. It's probably top 15 or top 18 when you really try to get to this sort of like core group of guys. And whether Durant is 9th on that list or 12th or 14th or 16th when he retires, for me, being clearly the best men's basketball Olympian in the history of the competition, and maybe just the best basketball Olympian in the history of the competition, having 4 golds, assuming they get there, having 2 more than Jordan, 1 more than LeBron, having those records John you talked about. It's not leaping him from 16 to 2, but I do think it is an interesting and important reality in the sort of incrementalism that you have to get into when you're trying to figure out how you rank Elijah Wan and Karl Malone and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, whoever else I'm forgetting, wherever Kevin Durant, Shaq kind of fits in those conversations. John, for me, I think it's an important resume builder, and I think it should have some weight when we figure out where the hell this guy ranks in the history of the game when he's done.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. I think the longevity is really impressive, right? I mean, just being there and showing up and playing all the time, and like not everybody takes these assignments, right? Sometimes guys go, I don't want to go to the Olympics, or I don't want to go to an off-season tournament, a world basketball tournament where I can just go on vacation, right? Or spend some time working on my game. So that I think is definitely, as Ashley was saying, like it's a notch on his belt, and it's definitely to his credit. He's been so good for so long. And also, we saw what happened in the exhibition where in the exhibition games where they were trying to figure out what they were doing and who they were and whatever. And then KD comes back and it just unlocks everything. And this has been, not to say that watching Team USA has been boring, but there's been no drama. They've just been good. It's just
I think it's pretty boring.
He came back. Yeah. I mean, a little bit. Yeah. Now we'll see what happens with Serbia, and then whoever they play ostensibly if they get past Serbia in the gold medal game. But so far, it's just really kind of what we thought it was going to be before the exhibition started, which was just autopilot. And I think that has a lot to do with KD. I also want to bring up LeBron, who has been. You guys were doing the other show the other day, and I did the post-game show with Sam Quinn. He and I talked about it a little bit. He just deciding to be the main guy and be LeBron James and also facilitate everything. He had 9 assists today. He got hit in the head and then left, but I thought his passing was amazing. The way that he's pointing everybody around the floor, he had a hit-ahead pass really on to get Steph one of his 2 shots that he made today. We'll get to Steph in a second, but then he also had a sidelines out of bound alley-oop, Ash, to Tatum at the half. And I don't know where you are on LeBron in the Olympics so far, but he's been fantastic.
No, I agree. I mean, Bill and I spoke about this the last show. I mean, Bryce did an IG live, I want to say 3.5 weeks ago, maybe. It was right after Bronny got drafted, or maybe before Bronny got drafted. And one of the comments was Bronny's going to play with your dad. Do you think he'll play with you next? And Bryce is like, no, are you crazy? He's going to be 43 something years old. He's not going to
might.
He just might.
He might.
I mean, when you see what he's doing out here and how revived he looks and how refreshed he looks, how dynamic he looks, you forget that in December this man's turning 40 years old. It's mind-boggling. And yes, if you want to nitpick and find something, is he as dynamic as he was 10 years ago in certain things? No, but it's so hard to really notice the difference in such a grand way that it makes you question how many years he has left. And even if you're not a huge Bron guy, if that's not your guy, everybody has their guy. My guy's Kobe. I've said that time and time again. But you have to just appreciate 2 things about LeBron. And my dad, who's more of a Jordan guy than a Bron guy, he's never been a big Bron fan, actually said this to me the other day when we were talking about it. You have to appreciate his conditioning, just his longevity in his career, and how healthy he's been most of his career, and how he's been able to play most seasons in most of his career. And 2, his IQ is phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is.
His vision and his awareness of where everyone is on the court at all times and what's happening even when he's not looking at it, and his ability to hold on to things post-game and you hear him break it down is probably, for me, the most impressive part about LeBron. It is very rare to see a player have that kind of an IQ, and his understanding from multiple aspects of the game is just phenomenal. And I think also it has contributed to why he's been able to be so successful for so long in the NBA.
Also, to your point, Ash, about his basketball IQ, he's a grandmaster playing basketball chess, but every single piece he gets to play with is a queen, other than Halliburton, who's like a rook, but never gets on the board. The other thing that I think is really interesting about LeBron that I'm trying to appreciate, And it's not a slight. And I think everybody at this point should be a LeBron person to some degree just because of the greatness we're seeing. But over the course of an NBA season, because of the age that he's at, as great as he is, he has to pace himself. And he has to try to get his team in the right position without burdening out himself and his body. And then you sort of see him make this push in the playoffs. And he hasn't had the help the last year, really, to sort of play as well as he needs to. And he has to sort of, I think, temper himself. There aren't that many games in the Olympics. And so LeBron can go full beast mode every single game. And it's sort of interesting to see what it looks like when he doesn't have to worry about the 82 games that came before that. And where do we place? And are we in the play-in? And I got to put in energy for that. Now I got to get through the Denver Nuggets or whoever it is. It's just, here are the games that count. There aren't a lot of them. And it's a reminder that when LeBron can do that in small sample sizes, when he doesn't have to be the main guy for 90 games to get to the games that are elimination games, the guy is still every bit as dynamic as he was 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's incredible.
You saw a comment there from one of the viewers, B Meadows, who, by the way, nice. I believe it was a MF Doom mask there. So nice job on that one. But Bron's putting up a crazy fight against, shouts to MF Doom, rest in peace. Bron is putting up a crazy fight against Father Time. Sam and I talked about this the other day. 45 is realistic. Like,
I think it
maybe
is
longer because of what you two were just saying about how he thinks the game better than anybody else. Eventually, Father Time will catch up to the physical component of his game. But what's to say that he couldn't be a Joker type, YMCA dad body, thick in the game, backing people down, throwing great passes, right? Like, he's not going to be the athlete that he was at 30. Well, it can be. It could be.
Can I throw in with, I love that, with a mixture of Tim Duncan, his last championship run. Duncan didn't play a lot of minutes. There were games where he would play 19 minutes or 8, where Pop would really not play him a lot. And the playoffs would roll around. He'd roll out the old man. He might get to 30 or 32 minutes. To your point, you can also have LeBron coming off the bench, being the guy that plays 20, 22 minutes a game when he's 44. And then when it's go time, assuming he's surrounded by the right players, he can kind of step up and be the guy for a game or two at 45. I see that.
That's key, right? Well, for starters, I just don't ever see Bron being willing to come off the bench. I just don't. I don't care how old he is. He's a starter. He's not Tim Duncan in that.
45?
He's not coming. I don't care if he's 65. He's not coming off
with his gray hair.
He would literally refuse.
No,
like, if I got to come off the bench, I'm retiring. So I don't think that would ever happen. But something you said is really the key in all this, right? Which is what has made what the Lakers have done or have not done so frustrating, right? Is what you said. It's depending on the type of players he's surrounded by. When you talk about Tim Duncan, why was Popovich able to do that? That was a much better team than what I feel like the Lakers have going into this season. They didn't get LeBron any of the help that he desperately needs if you want to talk about his longevity as a Los Angeles Laker, just as a player in general. It does not exist. They drafted Bronny, who's not going to be NBA ready. You didn't get him any immediate help. You got him a lot of help that's going to require a lot of work, a lot of molding. And when you talk about the Western Conference, it's a conference that is not forgiving of patience. There is none. You have the Timberwolves, they're coming back. OKC coming back. John Morant and the Grizzlies are going to be ready to go. You have the Kings. DeMar DeRozan is now on that team. They're offensively, they've gotten better. I mean, you have the Nuggets you always have to look out for. The Dallas Mavericks it is not an easy conference to be a 39-year-old player with zero help. It's just not. If we were talking about the East, I would say, even though the East, I think, is a lot better than it has been, there's still a drop-off after we get out of Boston, Philly, New York. There, you could still even make some noise if you're LeBron James and that Lakers squad. In the West, I don't know.
Yeah, 5 years from now when he's playing for Cleveland,
that's what I'm saying. 5 years from now, he can go back to the East. He could. Yeah. I just want YMCA slow down version of LeBron at the end of his career.
You can hear him crack his back when he gets off.
Yeah, and he's got a headband, he's got knee braces.
But you first need him to survive 5 years in the West. How can you do that?
I believe it. I believe in it.
Well, he's looked fantastic, and I just love when he's in like floor general mode and he's pointing everybody all around the floor. Earlier in the Olympics, when he was doing that, Embiid got completely lost. Last 2 games, Embiid, not as lost, has been much more involved in the offense. Today, he's in the last game, the final game against Puerto Rico, he wasn't very efficient, but he was more involved. Today, he was extremely efficient, extremely involved, 14-7, team high plus 25, and only played the first half. They just let him rest in the second half. Again, Brazil, not a lot of resistance here, but did we maybe, and I was definitely guilty of this, but did we, Bill, maybe rush the man Embiid is terrible, stick him on the shelf for the rest of the Olympics take?
When he hit that three today from the top of the key, where he kind of looked around and thought, bleep it, I'm just going to win in on it all. It's all coming up, Joel. Here's the thing. And I think maybe we've cracked the code a little bit on how to make him effective, and Steve Kerr got some insight. What you need to do with Joel Embiid is you just need to pair him against a team that has no athleticism, can't run,
no size,
can't jump, and very limited basketball skill and size.
Yeah.
And when you can get that matchup, Joel Embiid is money, baby. He's aces. That's you brought up YMCA and LeBron. You just need Embiid to play against a YMCA team, and then everything works out splendidly.
I agree, not as harshly, but I agree. I think that I don't know if this is the game that makes me change my mind on Joel Embiid's fit on this roster. I still think it's a little bit of a mismatch. I think offensively, there's just not a lot. The space for him just isn't there. It's just not a fit for a multitude of reasons. And we kind of talked about all these. And I stick by what I said. I still think, I know Chris Walker disagreed with Bill and I when we had this conversation on the pre-show when we were talking about Joel Embiid. I think if he wanted a more dominant role, yes, it may not have led to a gold medal, but again, it may have. We don't know. I think that France was his best option. I think that he would have been a leader, a focal point on the French national team. I just don't see how he can be even an ounce of that on Team USA with all the talent, the way that these players kind of fit into each other like a puzzle piece. He's like that weird corner piece that you keep trying to figure out, where does he belong in the puzzle? And you keep trying to stick it in places and it's just not fitting. I still stand by, my thought process that France, yes, it may not have been an easier path to a gold medal, and everybody wants gold. But if you want to talk legacy, if you want to talk fit, if you want to talk continuity, Joel Embiid there could have made this team even more of a threat than they are now. They looked phenomenal in this game. I mean, Evan Fournier was hitting shots that I know Tibbs used to pray that he would hit when he would put them on the floor. I mean, and this was with Rudy Gobert on the bench. This is with Wembanyama not really being an offensive threat. They still beat Australia, and a good Australian team with Patty Mills hitting a Jordan clutch shot. It didn't even matter. I just think that a better fit would have been Joel Embiid on this French team, but it is what it is. I don't know if I use Brazil as the gauge of it's Joel Embiid back. I just don't.
Look, I'm with you. Beating Canada reinforces sort of my point last week that you referenced, and your point too, that Embiid should have played for France. I'm going to sound a little – so I've been in Europe, and I try really hard when I'm abroad not to be an ugly American, and I guess I'm going to lean into that here accidentally. I think it's true, even if it comes off as American arrogance and exceptionalism. John, like, jokes aside about Brazil, Embiid, here's the thing that struck me about how Embiid played in this game versus earlier in this Olympics run. And it coincides with how many minutes Tatum got, right? Tatum got minutes today. So apparently you can play everybody but Halliburton. Everybody can score.
He got 3 minutes of junk time at the very end, which is so sad.
Oh, did I miss it? I didn't even at the point I been lobotomized. So okay, good job, Halliburton. Or if you're talking about how Steph is playing, which I know we're going to get to, whatever we talk about, here's the reality, including with how Embiid plays. It doesn't matter. We are so much more talented than everyone else. I don't think that's going to be true in 4, maybe 8 years. But we are so much more talented than every other team, especially with Canada losing. I think it just reinforced for me that trying to conjure some competitor for USA to just make it interesting, I don't think is realistic. I know we should talk about how Embiid plays. We will talk about Steph, I think. The things we fit are interesting. None of it matters because the discrepancy between our talent and the other teams, even the teams that aren't Brazil, is so wide that I think Steve Kerr can make every mistake under the sun or not, and it will have no consequence. On the fact that we're going to win gold.
I think France.
But I don't think it's a big threat. I agree, but I don't know. I mean, Serbia is interesting because of the guy that plays for that team. But
I don't think even Serbia. I think France as a whole. I mean, Serbia is interesting because Jokic is on the team, and you expect him to do Jokic things. But I think France, if we're looking at the biggest threat that's left in this pool, for me, I think it's and then also they're the home team. They're getting some home court.
I don't think we have tried. I don't think we've tried at the level we. It's not a criticism of our team. I just don't think we've been pushed. There was one point today where I was so bored that, do you ever like watch an NFL game or like I used to watch Clay, you just like, I'm going to watch the offensive lineman, or I'm going to watch Clay Thompson for the entire quarter to just watch the game differently. I decided to just watch the game without the score, right? I'm not going to look at the score. I'm just going to watch 5 or 10 minutes. I think we're up 11 at that point, and just watching the game and trying to focus, my eyes glazed over. I thought, okay, I think Brazil's cut the lead a little bit, maybe because we've looked so lackadaisical. And then I looked up and we were up by 19 or 20. Like, we're not even, if you ignore the score, we don't even, to my eyes, look like we are playing that overwhelmingly impressively, because I think we're that much better.
It's really evenly distributed. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you had 4 different scores in these 4 games so far, or 4 different high scores in 4 games so far. Today, the minutes were really evenly distributed. You had all the starters play between 12 and 17 minutes. The bench guys actually played more because it was so out of hand in the second half. And I said, by the way, that Halliburton got 3 minutes of junk time. He actually got 8 minutes. So congratulations to
Did he get a bucket?
Halliburton on being involved. 1 for 1.
So everybody scored.
Everybody scored. You mentioned Steph. We should talk about Steph. He took 3 shots. He made 2 of them. He has been like largely absent. It doesn't matter, as Bill mentioned, because the team is so good and so deep, and you don't need Steph. It is a little weird to watch. Also, on a previous show with Brad Bodkin, when Sam Quinn and Brad were both here, Brad is a noted, as is our podcast producer, Aaron, Warriors fan. And Sam and I were the ones defending Steph. Brad was burying him and saying that he's not clutch. He doesn't come up big in big moments. I'm like, he's Steph Curry. It's the Olympics. It's fine. But how do you guys, any level of concern about Steph just like kind of being not there?
Real quick, I just don't think, there are some players who I think that FIBA doesn't hurt them. I think that there are some players that FIBA drastically helps them because they're more physical players, and that physicality is celebrated more in FIBA basketball. So it helps guys who are not really so much known for their offense, more known for their defense. Then there are some guys like LeBron who are so multifaceted that it doesn't really hurt them at all because they could be a little bit of everything. I think Steph's struggle is that he's an offensive powerhouse, but the physicality needed to kind of sometimes get in there and get rough to get your shot. Unless wide open, I don't think he's capable of doing that. And he's never really had to. That's not his game. That's not the way that we play in the States. And he's just so quick constantly. The stats are how much he runs any given NBA game that it's hard to defend him because he's constantly moving. But the pace, because of the physicality of FIBA, is slightly different. And I think it's hard for Steph to figure out the groove that he needs to be in order to do what he does really, really well. So a lot of the things that Steph does are being stripped away from him when he's going against these other teams in the style that they're playing. It's not that he's not clutch. He's just not a FIBA player. And there are some guys who can make that transition a little bit easier than others. And I don't think Steph's that kind of player.
3 shots.
I think it's much ado about nothing. I think there's some basketball things going on. The 3-point line in FIBA is shorter, and so that makes it easier for guys who aren't Steph Curry to hit 3-point shots, right? It doesn't impact Steph negatively, but the value of the 3-point shot goes down a little bit because it's a little bit closer, and guys that are lesser 3-point shooters can make them. And all the things Ash said is true. I just think, also true that Steph has always been this sort of weird all-time great who's willing to defer. When Kevin Durant came into the team, he deferred in large part to KD. That's part of his makeup. And you're right, he's always moving, Ash, which I've always seen as a really interesting combination of his dedication to greatness and his selflessness, because most stars at his level don't put in the miles that he puts in. And if you play on an Olympic team, and again, I'm going to be redundant, and you're going to win gold, and you're never really challenged, and you're playing with all of these superstars, not just Kevin Durant coming to the Warriors for a few years, but it's LeBron over here, and it's Embiid over here, and it's Booker over here. I think, John, maybe he's taken 3 shots in part because he is by nature a really good teammate who shares the rock and doesn't need – I think he takes over games when he has to for the Warriors, especially as they become less and less effective outside of Steph. This team is effective. He doesn't need to dominate the ball. He doesn't need the offense to run through him. And I think it's just a weird thing to watch him sort of play without having to be the guy. And if he doesn't have to be the guy on teams, sometimes he's not. Not because he's not clutch. He's just selfless.
Yeah, he's just okay with it. It's kind of interesting. If you're joining us on YouTube, we thank you for that. Please hit the like button, leave us a comment. We'll throw it up on the show, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do these
Are the police coming periodically.
Yeah, I think that's it. They decided that's the end of the show for us, and I
thought they found me.
They're sounding the alarm. That's it for us. I want to get into some of the other games that happened today and what's left for Team USA. We mentioned Serbia. Serbia had to mount a massive comeback against Australia. That was actually a good game. They won in overtime, 95-90. They were down 24. It was the biggest comeback in Olympic history. Joker went for 24, 14, 8 assists, and 4 steals. So that's who Team USA is going to face next. They've already played twice this summer. They played one in an exhibition game. They played in group play. Team USA handled them. Actually, those are the games that Team USA has looked best in so far. Part of the reason why Embiid is on this team is ostensibly because of the Serbia matchup. They like throwing him at Joker. Any chance you think for either of the two of you that Serbia mounts a better effort than they have in the previous 2 games?
So, no, I'll say this. I think that this is going to be an imperfect comparison because I'm going to compare Serbia to Argentina soccer, but Argentina soccer is really talented without Messi. When Messi plays in international competition, all of those guys with Messi look at him like he's a god, right? I think you guys have all seen the video where they all wait for Messi and he walks out and he raises that level because the guys are in awe of him. That is true for those Serbian players. The problem is their level can't raise quite as much because they're not Argentinian soccer players, they're Serbian basketball players. So, John, I think you're going to get a level from every guy that's not Joker that's higher because they're going to want to play for him. Their country too, but they're going to feel, I think, this infusion of confidence because they've got this guy and they'll play better. But I think USA I think we're too good. I think we're too talented.
Do they not flip that switch during exhibition games, or they save that for just?
I mean, I think that exhibition games, however much you want to pretend they matter, don't. And I think I just think it has to. The same reason that a preseason NBA game is different than a game in January is a lot different than a playoff game. I think once you're in an elimination Olympics game, I would imagine the energy and the intensity is much, much higher. Unless you're USA.
Interesting, right? Because there is this conspiracy theory based on interviews that the Serbian head coach has done over, the course of the Olympics and in other FIBA tournaments and things like that, that basically the Serbians play chess, not checkers. Meaning that they go out there in the exhibition games and they make people think that they're not as good as they actually are. Then when
the passing strategy,
they flip the switch and it's a different Serbian team and Jokic decides he's going to go ahead. Jokic, it's a conspiracy theory that has been out there for a while. Now, do I buy into that? Of course I do. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I love this.
They almost didn't flip the switch in enough time today against Australia.
This is my point.
Yeah, they were playing that one real close.
This is my point. I think that, yes, I do think that there is a concept of, you're a leader and you want to go ahead and do so well for your leader that it trickles down to the rest of the team. I don't discredit that at all. I think that's a very real ideology. But I think that when we talk about what we just saw with Serbia versus Australia really had to go ahead and just crumble for Serbia to even stand a chance. I mean, if you want to look at this, what came first, the chicken or the egg, I would say Australia blew it more than Serbia beat them. And that's not knocking, the comeback from 24 points. That's incredible. When it came down to the wire, Australia really had to go ahead and just, the bed. So for me, I don't look at this Serbian team.
Now, what's the rest of the bed phrase?
How's
the rest of that go?
I don't know. I don't think, listen, Serbians are big. They play really slow. And that's a direct contrast to how Team USA likes to play. They can play quick. I don't think that Serbia can keep up. Ultimately, I think we'll get a better showing from this team, but it's not going to be enough for them to go ahead and pull an upset if that's what people are thinking. That's not going to happen.
The actual 2 basketball things that I'm really interested in sort of pondering and seeing, they're different ones as it relates to Serbia, is first of all, Embiid against Joker, I think is really interesting. Like, is that an area? Is that a space?
You get it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't got a lot, but that's a real matchup that beyond the Olympics, but I'm interested in. I also think, and I don't have a perspective on this, I was thinking about it, but I haven't come to a conclusion. Is there any way in which we assess Jamal Murray differently, watching him play and not play well at the same level when he's not playing with the best player on earth? Because not that Joker is Jordan, but there's a world where Pippen, as great as he would not have been as great without Michael. You can sort of go through all-time greats and how they enhance the people around them. Watching Murray and sort of the minutes he got and the impact that he had, and Canada coming up short, without Joker, I think is a really interesting thought experiment that I'm going to be pondering over the next few days.
So as you mentioned, Canada lost today. France beat them 82-73. This was the marquee game of the day. This is the game that everybody was really excited about because of France's front court and then Canada's back court. And it went very strangely. I would have expected, France to play into their strengths. Instead, France decided to kind of play to Canada's strengths, and they ended up not starting Rudy Gobert. He didn't enter the game until the second quarter. He only played 4 minutes. They won the game. Like they were pretty much in control from front to back on this game. And it kind of surprised me, especially because a lot of people had Canada as a dark horse favorite with 11 NBA players, superior guards and wings. They were talking a good game. Not surprisingly, Dylan Brooks at the front of that, who he was just talking so much trash about LeBron being old and KD being old and Steph being old and how they were going to handle Team USA, and they are already eliminated. So yeah, I mean, this was a really interesting result. Wemby looked, pretty good. It was some of the role players, and Ashley mentioned Evan Fournier. Are you guys surprised by this at all? Because there was earlier in the tournament, France got some home cooking courtesy of the refs to beat Japan. They should have lost that Japan game, and then they all of a sudden just go out and easily handle Canada.
Look, I don't think anybody's beating USA, but when you make these amazing runs to try to be champion in any of these sports, sometimes you have to win games when you don't play well, when your best player doesn't play well. And Wemby didn't play badly, but he scored, I think, 7 points. I mean, it's not like he
had some big
offensively.
He did. He played well.
He was doing a lot.
He played well, and he is the most I think he's the most multifaceted player on earth, even though the guy's barely been in the NBA. But if you just told me in a vacuum, France is beating Canada, I would say, I guess Wemby probably went like 28, 14, 12, 5, and 4. I mean,
and Rudy would have done something.
Right. And Rudy, by the way, Rudy said that he had a little surgery, and then his coach said not true. So it's a weird, the coach saying no surgery, and Rudy saying this is why I only play a little bit of time. So it's kind of a weird, but yeah, John, I think France France beating Canada, not surprising. France beating Canada, and it just shows you that in FIBA sometimes you can get scoring from other guys. Guys start to hit threes, dudes that were drafted several years ago that I couldn't remember were in the NBA for 30 seconds. It's a fun story. It's an interesting story. I think it also takes away the one team that I think could challenge USA.
I mean,
Canada was the team.
Evan Fournier puts on that FIBA, France jersey and turns into Steph Curry. I mean, he did not play like that on the New York Knicks. I mean, this is what I'm saying. There are some guys who really benefit from the style of play of FIBA, and there are some guys who maybe get a different level of confidence to their game playing for their national team. That's another thing that playing for your country gives you a little bit of pride, gives you a different swagger in your step. Some guys really feel that and celebrate that. They were talking about during, the game today against Brazil, how, the players from last year, some of them were crying as they advanced to certain rounds. It's just having the, all eyes on you from your home country and representing them and having the chance to, some guys really carry that like a badge of honor. It means a lot to them, especially because they don't have the NBA and things like that. So I'm with you, Bill. I had Canada as being the biggest threat to the US just because I felt like that roster mostly resembled ours in talent. It resembled ours in defense, offense. It resembled us in speed. I'm not discrediting France, though, because I've seen the refs do some things for the French national team, not discrediting how they've been playing, but it's very clear that
the Japan game was an abomination.
Gold medal game. So
yeah, those calls in the Japan game were an abomination. And Ash, I saw that you said that you want France versus Team USA in the finals. I think that would be the most entertaining from a storyline standpoint. But I do want to push back just slightly with you guys here on France being like the biggest remaining challenger, because we haven't mentioned Germany. And Germany defeated Greece today. They sent Giannis home. And look, a lot of people are kind of sleeping on the Germany team because they are a team. They've been together for a while. Dennis Schroeder in FIBA play, Ashley was talking about how FIBA play kind of changes things, right? Dennis Schroeder is Steph in FIBA play. He scored 31 off the bench. It's absolutely ridiculous. Franz Wagner has been awesome. Daniel Tice has been awesome. This is Dirk. So Dirk Nowitzki the other day said, and I think it was to Mark Stein. Apologies if it wasn't, but I think it was to Stein.
Because then we're really in trouble.
Well, he was saying that Germany has the most complete team that they've ever had. That the Germans, their German team, not in the field, but that this is the most complete German team that they've ever had because they've been playing together for so many years now. I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't surprise me if Germany beat France.
So I what you're saying is completely reasonable, and I hear what you're saying. And again, I just think the difference between USA and every other team is so distinct.
Oh yeah,
it has to be one player, right? I don't think USA is losing to anyone, but if they do,
no, I don't think so either.
It has to be some guy that scores 50 points, has just like the greatest Olympic game of all time. I will bet on that. It's not happening, but I'll bet on that being Wemby over Schroeder. I mean, that's why I think France is now the big. And the reason Canada was like, that's an NBA team. I mean, that's
an NBA team for sure. That's a playoff NBA team at that.
And Canada, 8.5 point or 8 or 9 point favorites today against France. And so, like, it's an interesting reminder that being home for the Olympics, maybe it is worth 8 or 9 points. Like, maybe that's or more. I mean, because they won fairly handily. So I hear you, John. I just think the German argument's very legitimate against every team in this competition for me, other than US.
Yeah, I'm saying that on that side of the bracket, I think everybody that is even like, you know, even if you're tapped into the NBA, you're like, oh, it's going to be France, right? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Germany wins that game. In fact, I'd probably have them as favorites.
I think that's fair. I think because it's different who's a favorite in that game versus who is the most likely to beat America, even if the most likely is, for me, a 5% chance, right? Those are very different equations. I hear you.
But from a storyline standpoint, I think Ash is right. I'd rather see France. I think it'd be more fun to watch that game, especially because the French crowd would be so jazzed up and they could boo the hell out of Embiid. And, you know, like it would be the storylines.
Statue of Liberty. So, you know.
Yeah. Maybe they'll take it away.
It was the Statue of Liberty and we took your gold medal. How do you like that?
That whole bit. All right. Well, this has been a fun show. We made it through yet another Team USA game. We have another one coming up on Thursday. We're going to be on CBS Sports Network at 2 p.m. Eastern prior to the US playing Serbia. And then I believe, and we have, there we go. We have confirmation from producer Aaron in real time. Thank you so much. And then we're going to have a post-game show as well. So we'll probably do that one live.
Are you guys not? You guys
on YouTube?
You post-gaming with me? I'm doing it.
I don't know.
Jerry Maguire.
A lot of moving parts. We're gonna talk to Aaron about that afterwards. But like I said, we'll be back for the pregame show on CBS Sports Network on Thursday. But until then, for our NBA insider Bill Ryder, for Ashley Moss, who is going to finish that phrase eventually, I'm John Gonzalez. We thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.